All right, it's 7 p.m., so we'll call the meeting to order. Just as a heads up, Mr. Kelleher has been pre-designated to sit in for Mr. Lessig this evening. Who is on a planned absence, so that's a seat we will not have to fill. Christine, would you do the roll call for us?
David Hosmer,
Excused.
Ronald Cabana,
Yep.
Frederick Shimura,
He's excused.
Michael Dougherty,
Present.
Glenn Lessig,
Excused.
David Fortin,
Here.
David Richardson,
Here.
Roy Broderick,
Excused.
and Jeff Kelleher.
Here. Thank you. All right. We can still seat an alternate.
I'll move to seat Dave Richardson.
Second. Motion to second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All righty. Next order of business is to approve the minutes from the May 16th regular meeting, which followed our town vote on the budget.
I would move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second. Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right. Committee reports, we have none. Next order of business is unfinished business. We had the original bylaws a little bit fine-tuned. There's not much change from the original that we had there, but you should have all got a copy of that, so we need to actually have a vote so that we put this in effect.
Since this is Glenn Lessig's baby.
Yeah, well, he wasn't concerned about it, because he's already gone through all the changes. He's more concerned about the minority seating rule.
The January, we had a January 10th draft distributed, I forget what month it was now, I don't know if it was June or prior to that, with all the proposed changes. I just went over them all, and
They've all been done, yeah.
accomplished.
So, and those were what we had decided at our meeting.
Right, there were strikeouts and some words that need to be changed. I just reviewed it and they were all there.
Can I say something? Regarding to this, yes, it was adopted by all of you on January 10th. He just sent this to me and asked me to make sure that everybody got this, because I don't think he thought everybody got it, so I don't really think there was anything to approve, or I think it was just a couple of the agendas didn't follow status quo with how it was recommended on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got this from him the other day and just asked that we passed it out. So I don't think there was really anything other than that, because it's already been adopted by your board.
Okay.
Actually, the original date.
And you removed the term draft and put adopted, I see that.
I haven't done anything. He blended all of that. He
Yep.
just sent it to me and asked me to give everything to everybody. And on the bottom, it said adopted January 10th, 2017.
Adopted, yeah, which is what I had up here. Very good. All right, then we will move on. Update on the school roof project. Karen, you have some information for us?
I do. We did get reimbursement from the state. We received $1,015,174, and I can get you that, Christine,
Okay.
after again. Speaking with Karen Monroe, there may be a little bit more coming forth. I believe some of the reimbursement was denied, right, because of some of the change orders or something that was submitted weren't really reimbursable. So we may still be getting a small amount coming
Yeah,
forward.
I need to call the state tomorrow. I talked with Dave Stein this morning. He thinks that one of them, we may be able to get something. It depends what paperwork they want to change that, so they're working on it.
That being said, the town has gone out for proposal to change over the current ban to an actual 10-year bond. And we have chosen Webster Bank. And that decision was based on the overall savings and cost to the town, and that was advisable by our bond counsel and our financial advisor. And that paperwork is in the works. We should be having closing documents by next week to be signed, and then the actual closing will take place on July 27th. And that ban with Century Bank will be paid, and we will have a 10-year bond with Webster Bank. And the first payment will come out in our fiscal year of 18-19, so it will be on the next budget's redemption of debt.
And at that time,
And-
you'll also have a lesser redemption of debt due to the school project? That would
They're still gonna be on there. They're not, the school is, the current K through 4 project is not done until 2020.
Okay.
So within a year or so, that will come off, but I believe it should be estimated somewhere around $160,000 a year for 10 years for the principal. And then, of course, with the interest, it's, I think, at 2.308% is what we got for a rate. But the biggest part of this whole thing was prepay penalties. Other banks had penalties and things like that, the town did not. And that was because we assumed possibly getting a little bit more reimbursement, and we might wanna put that down to reduce. So that is why we chose Webster Bank. And I have documents, if anybody wants to, I can email them so you can see who the potential bidders were and things like that. If anybody needs that, just email me, and I'll be more than happy to forward it.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So were the cost of the short-term notes being rolled into the 10-year bond?
Yes, what they do is we go out to bond, and then that money will pay off the current ban, because a ban is the actual cash. It's just an anticipation note. They give us the cash, now we actually have to finance it, so we'll pay them off, and that will be the 10-year bond.
Okay. So, all right. And the increase in the redemption of debt's gonna be about $160,000.
Well, the principal, yes, I'm not 100% sure. They'll be sending me, next week the actual breakdown.
Amortization,
Yes, and then I'll know for sure, and at that point, I can let everybody know
Yeah,
what
could
the
you forward
cost.
that along,
Yeah.
just for planning purposes?
Yes.
to know what the-
Yeah, I didn't have it to bring, I just
It's
know
fine.
that it's about 160,000 on the principal.
Any other questions? Alrighty. Alright, solar project update. David, you have some information for us regarding?
Here are some,
Numbers again, just so you know.
I need one more down there.
We got it over here, I don't know if you
I've
want to
actually-
say any topics, but you're
It's
No,
actually
you
more
keep
than
it.
what we had hoped, but it's still a good rate compared to
here's-
all the other banks, yeah.
Some more copies.
Yeah, I'd like to have a
Could you
copy.
grab me one, too, Ken?
And would you give that to Christine?
I sure can.
Thank you.
That's just to make it a little easier to keep track of me talking.
Here's the stuff.
Thank you, Woody.
Before we go through documents, it's truly unfortunate that this project wasn't done in public, where questions could have been asked, as we would have saved the town at least $20,000 to $30,000, and likely would have resulted in a much better deal for the town. Trying to put this together after the fact was a bit like making a jigsaw puzzle in the dark with gloves on. In many cases, you had to know the answer to even ask the right question, and then get the right documents. Eversource was a great help in understanding the project and in figuring out what the right questions were. This was despite the selectman's office having sent a notice to Eversource in January, limiting account information to a specific list of individuals, appearing to be trying to exclude me. This occurred after our December meeting, when I revealed that I had been talking with Eversource about the project. I have reviewed what I'm gonna present to you with regard to the structure and function of the program with Eversource's virtual net metering group multiple times to assure that I have a full understanding of the program and how it works. If we look at the first document, that's this one right here. This was first presented in March of 2016 by Alan Walker during our budget review. It appears to be on Be Free Solar letterhead. Most of this document is factually untrue and grossly misleading. The areas that are circled in green, you can see where I circled them with a Sharpie, are factual. The town will pay Be Free Solar 9.3 cents for each kilowatt, net kilowatt, delivered to the grid. The solar system energy produced, which is the other column in green, is the minimum expected output as detailed in the contract with Be Free Solar. So those two things are factual. The area that's circled in red up at the top implies that the power the town receives would have cost 16 cents, increasing with time to 28 cents. And instead, we were going to be paying 9.3 cents. The calculated savings that you can see over next to the last column on the right is derived from those numbers. It's not true, and this does not fit with the virtual net metering agreement that was signed just 9 months earlier. And it does not fit at all with the actual way that the virtual net metering system operates. The 2.4 million in, quote, savings is not achievable, never was, and is totally misleading. In fact, the term savings is misleading. If we turn to the next document, this is the press release by the town dated March 21st, 2016. There's numerous problems with this release, which is still on the website today. I checked it. As I noted a few minutes ago, and as you will see as I go through this, the $2.4 million is not real. The actual gain by the town will be between $300,000 and $800,000, as I will explain, and that's over the 20-year period. I ask you to take a look at paragraph 2, and that's the one that's highlighted in there. Alan Walker's statement in reference to the ability to purchase electricity at a deep discount, and the other comment about the town hall, highway, garage, schools, and pumping station receiving benefit from fixed discounted rates. That is just not factually accurate and not how the program works. A program that Alan Walker had agreed to 9 months earlier, and we'll go through the agreement. This press release makes it very clear that neither the Board of Selectmen or the Green Team who was credited with bringing this forward, if you look at the first sentence of the third paragraph. Neither of those two groups understood how the brownfield virtual net metering project would actually work before they signed an agreement that committed the town to a 20-year project. And I'm being kind by saying they didn't understand. I mean, they didn't have a clue. This misunderstanding of how the program works led to a cost of more than $20,000 for the town, as both the town and the school system failed to update their generation contracts for electric power when the rates dropped significantly last year. Somehow thinking that the solar project would provide the discounted rates that were talked about in this press release, which never materialized. The school was paying 8.85 cents per kilowatt. The town was paying 9.15 cents per kilowatt, when the rates had dropped to between 6.5 and 7 cents per kilowatt. Now, I've been told that recently those contracts have been updated, but it's gotta be pretty recently, because I think I saw the last bill for June, and it was still at the old rate. Is that correct, Karen? They have been updated?
With what? I don't know.
The generation contracts for
I
electricity.
mean, that's what the selectman's office had indicated.
I have not seen any contract, that doesn't come to my office.
It wouldn't, you virtually do it online
Oh.
to change it.
Oh, no, I know, I do my own at home, I switch mine every 4 to 6 months because of the savings, constantly switching it, but I have not been aware of any changes yet, I haven't seen any contract, usually I get a copy to keep on file with the Eversource, I haven't seen anything come forward to me yet,
Okay.
so I can't really comment on that.
Well, we've been paying these rates around 9 cents when the market was 2 to 3 cents lower. And just for reference, we use, in the town, over 1 million kilowatts a year. So a penny's worth 10 grand. So it behooves us to pay attention to these things. Document number 3, which is, it's 2 pages in. This is the virtual net metering service agreement that was signed in June of 2015. This was 9 months prior to completing the Be Free Solar agreement. Now, the purpose of this agreement is to set a limit on the annual credits that can be earned by the host. Woodstock is the host in this case. Why is that necessary? It's because there is a statewide limit or cap for all such programs, brownfield or agricultural virtual net metering programs of 1.6 can be considered. It has to fit under that cap. So they have to know what the maximum amount of credit will be for any new project to make sure that they're not exceeding the overall cap. If you look at a second paragraph on that page, you can see where that is spelled out. And it says, in determining the annual V&M credit cap for this facility, by signing this agreement, you agree to this cap and to abide by all other provisions of the company's V&M rider in order to qualify for and receive V&M credits. So this is required for this project to ever even have gone forward.
You said there was about 1.2 million annually?
There's 1.6 million for the state annually. There's multiple projects that fall under that. Ours is one of many. Right now, the $1.6 million cap for the state is full. There is no more room, so no new projects can be initiated. But before we go forward with ours, they had to know what the size of it was and had to set a limit on it because it had to fit under that. So the limit that's in here is a limit for the life of the project, and it's an annual limit.
And what, is that?
We're gonna see that next page. Page 2 shows the calculation. If you look down at the estimated annual KWH, what they did is the sales is 1.553 million. Purchases is the amount of energy that the system itself requires, so that the net, which goes to the grid, is 1.532 million, kilowatts. The rate at the time that this was done was 14.157 cents per kilowatt. That's the credit rate that Eversource was paying. If you multiply those two numbers, you get the cap for the Woodstock solar project, and that's $216,894. You want to remember that number. That's the key number, because no matter what, our credits can never be more than $216,894
Per year.
per year. It's an absolute ceiling.
Dave, excuse me,
Yeah.
does the, what do they call it, the cap pricing, that virtual net metering cap pricing under host tariff, 14.157, is that change?
Yes, and we're gonna get to that right about now.
So that was the rate at that
At
period,
that time.
in district.
In June 2015, that was the rate. If you flip over 2 more pages, you'll see the detail of the calculation. D&T, or distribution and transmission, is part of the calculation. For this period, it was 5.863 cents. Now, for the first year of the project, the host receives 80% of that in the credit, which is what you see there, 4.69 cents. First year, it's 80%. The second year, it goes down to 60%. The third year, and every year after that, it goes to 40%. So basically, in August of 2018, we will drop to a 40% reimbursement rate on D&T. The next section shows the 2 periods that were involved in the calculation, the generation rate. And that is the rate that Eversource is charging its Schedule 30 customers. Schedule 30 is basically what we are. The FMCC generation is federally mandated congestion charge. That charge can be plus or minus, but it's a number that's in, as you can see, hundredths of a cent. So you can see how the calculation was done to arrive at the 14.157. Right now, that calculation is 13.057 cents. That's about 7.8% lower than what the rate was in June 2015. Overall rate. Starting next month, it's gonna go down, because next month will be our 13th month. And so we'll go from 80% reimbursement to 60% reimbursement. Generation rates shift, there's a little bit of a change in D&P. So they haven't published the final number for the July through December. They tell me it's gonna be out this week. My estimate is that it's gonna be between 12.8 and 12.9 cents. So it's gonna go down some more. To kind of put this all in context, now think about it. We pay Be-Free Solar 9.3 cents. We get 13 cents from Eversource for every kilowatt. That means what we actually get in credits is 3.757 cents per kilowatt. That's what we get to keep. It's not really savings. It's really the profit on this transaction that we as the host get to keep. When we talk about things changing by a penny, doesn't sound like much. The 9.3 cents never changes. The 13 cents changes. The 3.757 changes. A penny is a big deal. It can reduce our profit by as much as 30%. 1 penny. When the rate gets cut from 60% to 40%, that's about 1.4 cents. So it's not an insignificant number.
But the 9 cents never changes.
The 9 cents forever. That's ironclad. Be-Free Solar has a locked up customer at a fixed rate for 20 years.
But if your 12 drops below 9, you'd be writing a real check.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. We write real checks right now. Through May, we have paid Be-Free Solar $87,000. We've received credits to offset that. But we cut checks every month, which is basically how we I was able to figure this thing out eventually. Also to just, keep the perspective on this, 3.757 cents divided by the 13.057 cents is a 28.8% margin. The most we can possibly get in credits is $216,894. The most we can make on that is 28.8% of that number. That would be, we produce no more power than is necessary to get to the 216,894, but we got enough to get there. Any variance comes out of our pocket. The most that we could make next year with that cap on there would be about $60,000 for everybody. But with the rates where they are and dropping, we won't get to 216,000. Now, a simple way to understand this, and it is simple once you see the whole picture, is we, Woodstock, are the host. We provide the site for the project, the old landfill. We provide maintenance of the site, and we provide security for the site. we're like the landlord. Be Free Solar, for all practical purposes, is a contract manufacturer. They provide the equipment, they're responsible for the maintenance of the equipment, operation of the equipment. For every kilowatt they deliver to the grid, we pay them 9.3 cents. We get a credit from Eversource for whatever the rate is at the time. We already went over what the numbers mean. You know, the most we can do is $216,894 in any year, no matter what. And it's not like Eversource has any leeway on this, because remember, they got an overall cap that they have to deal with. If production was high enough to exceed the 216,000, we still pay Be Free Solar 9.3 cents for every kilowatt. So if they produce more, we get zero, they still get paid. If for some reason, through inflation or whatever, the credit rate was to go very high, we could hit the cap short of the amount of power that that puts out. We'd get 216, we would pay 9 cents for whatever is produced. If it exceeded cap by 100,000, we'd pay an extra 10 grand. It's basically a contract manufacturing arrangement. And if you think about it that way, it's very easy to sort of put it in perspective. The last document in this pile, which is basically the last page, is from Energize Connecticut. It basically outlines everything I just told you. It doesn't use the same terms, but if you read it and keep in mind this contract manufacturing idea, this will make complete sense to you. But it basically says everything that I just told you. Thing is you need to know that this even exists to find it. And obviously, since there were never any questions that were able to be asked about this project before it got signed and agreed to, nobody ever knew about this. And if you go back and read that press release, you'll understand what I said about it. They had no clue how this actually works. There are no discounts. There are no fixed rates. The 2.4 million is impossible to ever get to. You just can't get there. Especially now that we're 2 years into it, or almost, going into our second year. And we are very obviously well short of the kind of numbers that they were using as a reference point in here. These numbers are basically meaningless. And I think we brought it up at the time that this was presented to us, the 16 cents going to 28. They mean nothing, because they have nothing to do with the way this project actually works. So, what can we actually expect out of this? With the decline of the DMT to 40% next year, if the credit rate stays at 13 cents, we would see about $320,000 over the course of 20 years, assuming nothing goes wrong. that we don't end up having to be liable for something. And I don't know what the insurance situation is, what the deductibles would be, what the cost is. None of that's factored into this. This is just pure number. If there was a 2% inflation rate, we could expect between $800,000 and $900,000. Probably more towards the 800 because we're sort of already seeing that next year is not gonna meet that rate. Things to keep in mind, the current rate for generation is declining. What I'm referring to is the market rate. Right now, you can go out and buy power for less than 7 cents. Eversource is charging 8.3. Eversource is gonna get squeezed. Take a look at the energy market. Oil prices are down, natural gas is down. Those all end up getting reflected in electric rates. Connecticut also has the highest utility rates in the continental United States. What does that got to do with any of this? Well, simple. Our rates are unlikely to match US rates of inflation because we're already so high. And this is one of the major factors that Connecticut is dealing with in terms of the economy and bringing manufacturing back here. Our utility rates are the highest in the continental US. If you're a big manufacturer, you're talking about electric bills that are $100,000 a month, not $100,000 a year. And utility rates make a big difference. What Preston was alluding to earlier, in 2018, if the generation rates fall into the mid to lower sixes, which is, by the way, where it was last year, we could end up paying Be-Free Solar more per kilowatt than we get in credits. Because our D&T credit at that point is going to be about 2.6, 2.7 cents. So this isn't always a make a profit deal. It is for Be-Free Solar because they get 9.3 cents no matter what. But there is some downside risk to this. I think the last thing that I'll bring up, and it's unfortunately not more people here tonight, but I think a very important open question is, did anyone connected to the town or the Green Team receive remuneration of any kind for facilitating this deal? If they did, they need to come forward, as it's gonna come out sooner or later.
Do you have any proof of this? I mean, this is a pretty serious accusation.
Did you hear what I said? What I said was,
Dave, I'm just,
the question is, did anyone connected to the town or the Green Team receive remuneration?
of
any kind.
That's a thinly veiled accusation.
It's not an accusation. The question, if they did, they need to come forward. If they didn't, then it's not an issue.
I'm just curious as why you're bringing that up.
Because
I mean, I'm saying if you have proof, I would expect you to bring it up, but it's a pretty...
it's not an issue of proof, Jeff, it's an issue of a question. We don't want to find out 6 months from now, or 3 months from now, that there was some facilitation going on. This thing went through with no public scrutiny whatsoever, zero. Nobody knew about this until it was signed off. So the question is, was there any? If there wasn't any, not an issue. If there was, somebody needs to step up.
I'm just curious why you're making that
It's not an
I'm
accusation.
curious as to why you're raising that question. I'll use your phrase.
Because if someone did it's a
I-
serious problem, because this document right here, which is what led to this, and the press release that was issued in March of 2016,
I understand that completely.
are
because you've explained it.
extremely misleading.
I understand that completely. You've explained that in detail, and I get what you're saying. I'm just curious as to why you're raising the question of, did somebody take a bribe, is basically what you're asking.
No, I'm asking if anybody received remuneration for this. There can be
I
facilitation
think we
fees.
can disagree on what
There
you're
can
asking.
be facilitation fees for bringing these kinds of deals together. If there was, we need to know about it. That's all. And in fact, I'm not the one, somebody actually asked me the question. And I said, you know what? That's a really good question.
I think you should bring it up at a board of selectmen meeting. You should ask that.
I just brought it up in public, and I'm putting it out on the table. If nobody received anything, then there's no issue.
All right, let's move on.
That's all I had, Mike.
That's all you had? All right, anyone have any questions?
Well, I mean, in light of what Dave said, and I'm not disputing anything he said, he's certainly done his homework. I would certainly like to hear a response from Mr. Walker, as well as whoever else was on the committee that made this deal. That's,
Seems reasonable. What I'm wondering is if we shouldn't wait for the contract year to expire, so that we can have Dave collect all the information, so that we'll actually know what credits we received and what we paid. You know, and have a total summary report for the first year, probably before we want to contact the Board of Selectmen, well, the Green Team. It would just seem to me, it would be better if we have
A full year.
a full year package of information, so we
Yeah,
can have a summary.
I sort of agree with you in the sense that I think we need to keep collecting the information, and I would like to receive the host bills and the invoices every month for at least the foreseeable future, so we can keep tracking this. But it isn't an issue of question at this point, Dave. The only question would be, well, how much is it gonna be at the end of this month? Is it gonna be $65,000 that we made on this? Is it gonna be $60,000? Is it gonna be $50,000? That's not really it. The real issue here is that the Board of Selectmen, supported by the Green Team, who supposedly brought this forward to them, agreed to something that they had no clue about. And they did it behind closed doors where nobody can ever ask any questions. And it's only by persistence and somewhat luck, and the fact that the numbers don't match up and never would, that we even know about this. So I think that the Board of Selectmen are the ones that are responsible for this. You know, the Green Team might have brought it to them, but they're the ones that had to make the decision, and it's Alan Walker's name on both of those agreements. It's not anybody else's. So he's the one that's got to answer the questions.
well, if I may, I suppose, I'm not sure that the Board of Finance really has any authority to do anything other than request information from the Board of Selectmen. I would certainly support that. I mean, I believe Dave has done his homework, but I would certainly like to hear an explanation about this. I'm not questioning that Dave was right or wrong, but I would certainly like to hear an answer, if it's that far off.
I agree with that, and I think, again, going back to what Mr. Fortin said, I think we should wait for at least a full year, because one of the things that happens with solar installations is 1 year to the next, you're not gonna get the same amount of generation because you don't always have the same weather, same sunlight, whatnot. But the first year should in fact be the best. And after that, the solar panels themselves actually begin to deteriorate. They will not produce as much under the same conditions. And looking at what I've seen so far for what they've generated to date over a nine-month period, I don't think we're gonna hit the 1.42 million KW in the first year. And if we can't do that in the first year, you know, that doesn't bode well for the future. So that's my biggest concern. And I also, I looked at some of the numbers that I had also been forwarded copies of the bills and the credits, and going back and forth over that and looking at it. My most optimistic projection for the 20-year period is about $800,000. That's by my mathematics. I'm not paying. I mean, it's just, you don't know until you know what you're working with. But I mean, from the basic numbers that we have at this time, it's way above. The projected amount is way above what we could actually ever realize from it. So I think, again, my opinion is I think we give this a few months, get a full 1 year cycle through here, retally the numbers, see how that looks that way, and then see if we can't get an explanation of how this whole thing was sold versus what we see, and go from there. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, can we have a summary prepared for our September meeting? Full year summary. I wouldn't wanna bring anybody in here to explain something.
No,
based just on projection.
right.
It's not fair.
We can, Dave, but I think you're missing the point. The point isn't what the number's gonna be. The point is that this doesn't work anything like what they said it was. It ain't
And I
even
understand, it could be a
close.
learning, it would be a learning experience, but I just think in fairness to bring somebody in here, we should be able to have the hard numbers.
Yeah, if we have the
So that
numbers.
it's not disputable based on projections. And, I think,
Then you can say, this is what we were told, this is what we have, now, could you explain that to us? And how did this
My
happen?
only concern about that, Mike, is that the numbers themselves aren't even the issue. The issue is what they agreed to. What is not what they thought they agreed to. It's not what they told the town. The numbers,
Well, we
numbers.
need them to tell us that then,
Yeah,
and that's.
that's tomorrow. Now, for this year, when we look at this year, and certainly it'll be in any summary report, we should have the final invoices from Be Free Solar and the final host bill right at the beginning of August. So, and it takes me like about 20 minutes. But this year, we're actually probably gonna make out a little better, because one of the things I found when I was doing this is that Eversource had a problem with their production meter in December. They were aware of it when we got to the right people. They didn't fix it till the middle of March. During that period, they were estimating the production. They overestimated by $20,000. I talked to Eversource about it. I pointed it out to them, and they got back to me in a couple hours and said, yeah, that's what happened. I said, well, what about the $20,000? He's gonna come back at Woodstock to get the 20 grand. He says, no. He says, you'll get to keep the credits as long as you don't hit 216. So if you hit 216, everything's off. But you'll get to keep the extra $20,000. So this year, we will actually make out because of Eversource's problem. But obviously, if I do a summary, I'll break that out, because it's clear. It's not, you know.
I think it's just the right way to approach this, is.
Can I just ask a question, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way to any of you. What is this gonna prove in the end? It is what it is. We have a 20-year contract. Can we get out of it? Can we sue the person, be free from misleading the town?
I think
I'm
that's
just
a
curious as to
question.
what can happen at this point, because we have this system, we signed an agreement, the rates are what they are, we cannot predict the future, but what can we do? I think that's more of a problem than trying to constantly prove somebody or something wrong. Let's find a way to fix it. Let's see what we can do about it if it's not accurate.
Where I was going with this whole thing was, if we have a summary report, then we can talk to the selectmen. Obviously, what's done is done.
Yeah.
What we can do is, if Dave's correct, then we should correct the information that's published. I don't mean with a press release saying, hey, we goofed up. That's not gonna do anybody any good.
Mhm.
But we could take down this thing that says $2.4 million and put something that we feel is more realistic. Because there won't be a
Right, I
statement.
agree with that. I agree that, you
That
know,
would be my end goal, I
things
think.
could have been misleading, but I just feel like, let's, try to work to straighten this out instead of
Well,
constantly.
the only way that we could do that really is we have to justify the fact. In other words, if we were gonna have a lawsuit
Right.
against Be Free or someone else,
But I guess
we would
that's
have
my
to, we would
question.
have to have all of that information, so therefore, as I said, we should compile a full year,
Mhm.
get it all plotted out, show what was projected, what was realized, and how come there's such a big difference. So,
The only reason why I bring it up is
But-
because I have been approached myself in my home, and we are against the solar, we don't want it in our home. I don't feel that we would have significant savings, nor do I wanna put that pressure on my roof and things, but I have many people that I'm friends with that have the same deal. They promised, 20 years, you're gonna save $60,000, and, you're gonna, this, that. I think that when the average person is being presented with something like this, with, maybe they cannot do the research like Dave did, don't have the time to do it, or depend on somebody like a professional that comes and gives them this proposal. I don't think it was purposely misleading to the town. I think that they actually thought by the presentation they were going to be able to have substantial savings, just like a homeowner does when they put some, panels on their house. I just feel that I would really like to see, like you said, the evidence, the summary, sit down and talk about it, because I feel that what is done is done. We have this system. If we can do something about it and go after the people who are actually misleading, I think that would be a better approach. I don't really feel that at this time, what more can we do?
that's like I said,
I think that's
my
where we are.
opinion is to
That's where
do
we are.
a full year. Once that's completed, do up a summary,
Look at it again.
look at it again, review it, yeah, and then make a decision as to where we're going from there.
I'm sorry, guys, but the full year thing is irrelevant. The issue is what you just said. Was the town misled?
Mhm.
If you look at that page,
Yeah, it looks like they were.
it most certainly is. If you look at this press release, they bought that page hook, line, and sinker. Because they reiterated it right there. The Board of Finance can't do squat. But the Selectman's Office and the Town Attorney can. Because you can't defraud people. And that's what this looks like. Is it? That's not for me to decide. That's for a court to decide. But this is wrong. That's why this is up here. And it's regardless of how much this number, what we have at the end of the year is meaningless. Was this wrong? And it is.
Can I make a comment here? You know, this is just another one, and you guys were shut out of this. And the other point I make on this is not a reduction in our utility, this is actually income. You have to consider this income to the town, not reduction in utility.
Right.
The other thing is, this is just on the heels of the stipends and negotiating contracts that benefit people that are negotiating contracts. And that's why I'd like to get an idea of what's going on here, because I don't think that we really got good governance here.
All right, well, what's the board's decision? What are we gonna do?
My feeling hasn't changed.
Okay, mine hasn't either. Jeff?
Well, I hate to do this, I have to agree with Dave Richardson. I think that if there's any validity, and I have no reason to believe that there is or isn't to what Dave is saying, if there's any validity to that, first of all, as he said, there's not much the Board of Finance can do about it. But I'm not sure, I mean, all we can do is ask the Board of Selectmen to look into it and urge them to, take legal action if it's appropriate. Beyond that, I don't know what we can sit here and talk
We gotta
for
wait till
another hour
Mike
about it.
obviously.
But I mean, the ball's really not in our court, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to do something.
Agreed, because we don't have any power to do it. The only way that basically it affects us is people are sitting here and looking at us and going, hey, you just made $2.4 million over the last 20 years, how'd you spend that? Well, we didn't make $2.4 million. Sorry about that. So,
I think, we should continue collecting the
yeah,
information.
absolutely.
And so I would like that the Board of Finance to empower me to get the information from the Board of Selectmen. And I'm still waiting for the host bill. I have to cover the letters. I want the host bills from last August. I would like the host bills and the invoices every month going forward. As soon as and those come in right around the first of the month or the end of the previous month. So we can keep track of this pretty easily. And in September, I can report back to what it is. But I think in the meantime, and obviously this is already gonna happen because we had this meeting tonight.
Right.
The Board of Selectmen are going to be very aware of the situation. They can either step up and address the issue on their own, or they can sit back and wait for somebody else to do it for them, which I wouldn't recommend. But that's up to them, because we can't tell them to do it.
Correct. All right,
So host bills, what was the items?
The host bills and the Be Free Solar invoices. It's actually in invoice. It has all of the stuff on one page.
And something about contacting, being allowed to contact Eversource? Did you say something about
I think it would be helpful if they added my name to the list so that I can have a conversation with Eversource without them getting concerned. Try to keep it non-specific.
Who was it you speaking to, whatever this was?
A guy named Jim Merjewski. He's the head of the virtual net metering group.
Just, again, I appreciate all the research that Dave is putting in. I'm just curious as to why the Board of Finance, as opposed to the Board of Selectmen or perhaps the treasurer, wouldn't be collecting this information.
Well, the treasurer has a job.
yeah, it's got enough to do.
We do task her with other things. If I might answer, I would think that since Dave already took it down this far down the path, we might as well utilize
The
the
resources we
foundations
already
that we
have.
built. And just, like I said, go ahead and finish off the year, then we can present the selectmen with a full package of information that they can look at, and they can figure out if they were deceived. if they were, I would think that we'd wanna correct, like I said, correct our website. Like I said, I don't think anybody here is looking for a major announcement. Just correct it so that it makes sense, take that page down. That's what I would be thinking about, looking for as a board of finance member. And as far as, hopefully, that there's a teaching moment here that perhaps we could be of service to the board of selectmen and projects this large and maybe taken to the public more readily. I mean, I'm sure as Karen had said, you know, so somebody said, look, it's not gonna cost you anything, you're gonna save $2.5 million, I'd get pretty excited too. Pretty excited, pretty quick.
But it's too good to be true.
Okay, but, you know,
Never get
again, as
anything-
Karen said, what's done is done, so what are we gonna do about it now? Where do we go from here?
You never get anything for nothing. All right, so we're looking for a motion to empower Dave Richardson to, you got it already written up?
Well, I think the motion would be, I would move that Dave Richardson be empowered by the Board of Finance to continue his research into the Beefy Solar Agreement. And by that, we would like him to have access to the host bills, the Beefy Solar invoice or invoices, and be allowed to contact Eversource regarding the
Virtual
Woodstock,
metering.
for the Woodstock accounts, for the purposes of providing information to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen to determine what I'm looking for, the outcome of this project.
Did you write that down, Dave?
The whole thing, I do have the documents here. We got the recording?
Yeah.
You get a recording?
Yeah.
Okay, and you got the spirit?
Yeah.
So are we satisfied with that?
Yeah, I think all we need is a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a second? Any discussion?
I just have a concern whether or not it's our job, our duty, are we under authority to do this, or is this something the Board of Selectmen should be taking on their own?
Well, right now, it's our job to look out for the finances of the town of Woodstock.
Yes.
So this all has something to do with it, because this was supposed to be a grand windfall that apparently isn't gonna work out the way it was supposed to. And as I said, we're looking at this, and when I'm saying, geez, this year we got $95,000 more to spend, you know? But we don't, and it would be in our best interest to have something more reasonable that we could go by and say, well, yeah, we should be generating something, or hey, are we looking at the generation rates that we're paying for now? You know, when was the last time we checked to see what we're paying? And make sure that gets taken care of, because over a very short period of time, it can add up to $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 if you're paying a difference of a couple of cents when you're, as Dave said, you know.
No,
so-
I understand.
And that's our job.
I understand the cost involved, I really do.
I think that there should be no misunderstanding that the goal here isn't to persecute or accuse the Board of Selectmen of misconduct or anything like
No,
that.
it's
It's simply a matter if they were misled
I-
at this point,
I
that's where we
believe, I
are.
believe that you feel that, but again, well, let me put my real concern out there. He questioned whether or not somebody got paid off to make this happen. So I guess,
Let's hope he finds out he's wrong.
let's hope.
That's all.
But I guess the tone that he used when he raised that question led me to believe that he's looking at this, I don't know, it just doesn't sound like he's, when you made the presentation, it was pretty clear that you were very unhappy, and if this is all true, then I understand that. And you called the Board of Selectmen, let me use your word, clueless, and that was being nice. Well,
Actually, what I said is they didn't have a clue when they signed this.
Dave, if I may finish my thought, you had about 40 minutes to speak. I just want to make sure that Dave's motives are to actually find out what happened and not just to smear the Board of Selectmen and wouldn't it make more sense for us to urge the Board of Selectmen to figure out what happened?
Well, as
That's why,
as it was brought up already, I think they're gonna get the hint that we are discussing it. But in the meantime, we have a motion on the floor so that we can continue through David to collect this information, and this way here, if nothing is done, and we don't meet again until September, we can sit back, let's see where this goes, let's collect the information, come September, and we can have another discussion, and then we can approach the Board of Selectmen and request them to dig further into this or come back with some explanation. But the key is right now to empower Dave so that we can continue doing what we all agreed we wanted to do, is collect the information. So, any other discussion?
Let's vote on the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Alright. Any other old business, does anybody have anything?
Old business?
Yeah,
I don't have any.
unfinished,
Yeah,
that we missed.
I don't believe so.
No, okay. Alright, new business. We had a request from the Board of Education for a transfer from CNR account for funds. Victor, would you like to?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. This request originated with our May meeting, Board of Finance meeting, where there were some discussions after the meeting encouraging us to put together some capital projects that could possibly tap into the CNR. So we put our heads together and we took items mostly from our 5-year capital plan. And simply maintaining the facility, you see things like chimney repair, the window rentals at the elementary school, fire pump, continuing our painting project, and also some major paving that's needed at the elementary school just due to deteriorating pavement. So we put together this list, and it's just something that we felt we would bring to you. The board approved the request. So I'm just here asking if you would allow this to move forward. You were very generous last year with helping us out with our budget shortfall, so I'm just bringing this forward to you, and more than willing to answer any questions.
What are window rentals?
That's a good question. At the elementary school in the northern wing, they designed the windows, and they have this huge cement block over each window.
Like an arch or something.
Yeah,
That's a lentil.
yeah, that's a lentil. There's about 20 of them on that wing, and they're starting to scoot out, and we had to repair a couple while we were doing the roof project. But, I think the blocks weigh like 600-700 pounds, so they just have to be shored back up and secured into the building.
Anything above a window is a lintel.
Oh, is that okay?
These
A
are,
carpenter would know that.
yeah, but these are ornamental and yeah, they are heavy.
A few questions here.
Go ahead, Dave.
Right, first of all, the 2016-17 year just ended. What do you have to transfer to non-lapsing?
Sure, good question. At that meeting in May, one of your requests was that we not transfer any money into the health insurance reserve account, and we honored that request. Currently, we're looking at around transferring maybe $100,000 into our non-lapsing. We're still waiting for some insurance bills, some legal bills to come in at the end of the year. And unfortunately, we are anticipating a potential special education deficit already for next year. So one of our intents would be to hold that and hopefully cover that, deficiency with the non-lapsing. But this is just a request to help us maintain the facility.
I don't know that legally you can do that.
Legally, we could do,
because the special education shortfall would be an operational expense. And if you pulled it out of the non-lapsing account, then you would end up with a 10-222 violation.
Well, yeah, we would have to ask for your permission and look into the legality.
We
but-
can't.
Okay.
We can't because we're also at the absolute limit, so there's no room. So even if somebody wanted to authorize the additional money, it can't be authorized because we are at the limit. So it's a lot, just on that one item, that's the operational expense thing is, capital expenses are a different story.
Jeff?
I guess the question I raise is, we still don't have a state budget.
No, and that's what I was just gonna bring up.
Yeah. We have no clue where this is gonna all end up. And I would say, we ought to keep our powder dry as long as we can until we at least got an idea how big the hole's gonna be. 'Cause we just don't know.
Well, it would be my recommendation at this time that the funds that you were going to transfer into the non-lapsing account, that you use those at this time if there's something you need to get done and pay for. And then come September, hopefully, the state will have a budget and we'll know where we stand.
That's a big hope.
Well, that's all you can do is hope when you're dealing with the state. And at that time, then you could come back to us again, and the possibility would exist that we could appropriate those funds from the capital non-recurring account to cover that. But
And you're right, there's a lot of unanswered.
at this time, with the amount of money that they're talking about out there, the cut possibilities, I mean, the city of Hartford just asked the state of Connecticut for $40 million just to get them through the end of the month. It's not like that's gonna solve their problem. If they need $40 million to get through the end of this month,
A month.
yes, a month. So,
Beyond that, both caucuses, Democratic and Republican, both agreed that cutting municipal aid stays on the table.
yeah.
Well, the one problem with taking it out of a non-lapsing account, I mean, what we're sort of saying is, we're kind of approving the transfer ahead of time.
Well,
Because technically, the year is ended,
yeah.
so,
But they have a budget.
They have a budget, and money is there, and money from the non-lapsing account they can use for capital expenses.
yeah, so if they take it out of their regular budget right now.
Right now,
do it,
correct.
And then in September, what we do is transfer the money into the non-lapsing account and then authorize that money to go back
All right.
and do
Against
this.
your maintenance budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we're sort of saying right now that we will go ahead and do that. As long as it comes out of the non-lapsing.
Yeah,
account.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And things, right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's my take on it right now, because until we know what the state's gonna do.
I would feel more comfortable with that, and there's, if we come back in September, I'd like to see itemized numbers for these items.
Sure.
Reasonable. I'm not gonna ask you to get to the penny.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to know, you know, we keep seeing painting come up, for example, and I looked at your last request, and it was $13,000. It just seems like something we ought to be able to do with our maintenance staff, a little bit every day, to save money if money's tight. I'm not telling you which way I would vote on that either way, I'm just saying Roy brought it up at the last meeting, I think it was, and I know how, you know, we handle it in our company. We have our maintenance staff work on it every day. Somebody's gotta go work on it for 3 hours or whatever we deem until we work our way around, but. Don't misunderstand, I'm not telling you how to run your school, I'm just saying, think about it, if money's getting tight. I can certainly understand you want the air conditioning, the music room. Our people can't do carpeting. Right? They gotta get the fire pump repaired, that's gotta be by some certified person. It's not
Correct.
something we can do in-house, but, you know, and then I look at maintenance, you know, I think that painting is just simple maintenance. You can't do paving. I'm all in on that, so. So do we have a consensus? Do we need a motion?
I
Give
think
us
the
some
best thing to
guidance.
do would be to just advise them right now to take it from their maintenance budget.
Table.
Their current maintenance budget, but for us to table it and put it on the agenda for September.
Okay, I would move that we put this request on our agenda for September.
Do a second
And
on
part
that?
of that motion would be that we have the numbers itemized.
Yes.
So just so I understand, we're recommending that they take it out of the current
We can't recommend, tell them how to spend it.
I get that.
They-
But we're saying
We're
we would
suggesting
suggest
that they might consider taking it out of the
Right,
current.
correct.
And then if the state, I'm just wondering what happens if the state comes back and says, remember what you thought you were gonna get, you're getting not even half of that.
Well, then they're gonna be short anyway, so that extra $90,000 is not gonna be a big deal,
I mean, yeah, that could certainly happen, Jeff, it's a concern.
but that's a possibility.
But I think they're looking for some direction.
Right.
So I mean, at this point, you know, obviously we'll be very conservative and.
Do the things you really must do,
Exactly.
that, you know, I gotta get done before the kids
But
come back.
you're saying that even if that happened, we would still lean towards taking the money from the non-lapsing account and putting it back in their budget?
Without commitment,
Without, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
at this point,
This is something
nobody's
that could
opposed,
happen, right?
nobody's
Okay.
opposed.
I'm right, and I get that, I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
That's
Yeah,
why,
in fact, this would be a good way to do it, because you can't put it into the operating budget.
Right.
That's illegal.
Right.
It could only be used for capital projects, so if this is your priorities on capital projects,
we should be spending money
Spend,
for capital
that's
projects.
what we have them there for, yeah.
Taxpayers can get a little bang for your buck.
let's hope we get a budget by September.
Well,
No, we'll be together at some point. All right, so I made the motion. Did we vote on it?
no, we did not, we're still waiting for a
We're still waiting
second.
for a second.
I'll second
All right, Mr. Keller, seconds. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, communications and correspondence. Our next meeting will be on September the 12th, and we'll have that on the agenda for the 12th. Public comment, anyone? Ernie?
I'd like to ask the question, all these solar panels is actually hazardous waste, and they only last about 25 years. What are we gonna do with all these solar panels after 25 years? Who's gonna pay to get rid of them?
I think that's one of those things that wasn't taken into consideration at the time. And actually, they're supposed to have a life of 40 years, but their useful production life is about 25.
Well, they belong to Be Free Solar.
Yeah, so I think when the arrangement runs out, they either pull them out, or you buy them, or they replace them. It's a new contract.
All the people I know that have put solar in my area, they're not working out, any of them. And they've got great big displays up there, but they're not working out.
Anyone else?
Just a quick thing, Pomfret's having a similar problem with their solar at their school, the talk is. But the other comment I wanted to make was, you know, when somebody goes out of the way in town government to prohibit an elected official from getting information from Eversource, you know, that to me is not good. And that's what was done with the Board of Finance. And I think the Board of Finance and you pay for them, we may have to get a referendum up there to make these things come back to the town to vote on. That includes the teacher's contract, includes all the contracts in this town, because it's just, you know, something stinks when you do this. It's not right, it's not transparent. And what's unfortunate is, you know, guys kind of accept it.
Anyone else? Okay, anything other from the board?
Just to be a little nitpicky, according to our new bylaws, we're supposed to have the public comment
Twice,
Twice, yes.
And we
Yes.
decided, when Mike had done the agenda with me, we opted out to not to put the first one in this time around. And it does specify that in your bylaws, that he has the right to make changes.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when Glenn and I worked on that, the idea was that if we were gonna be discussing something, very often the public doesn't have a chance to comment until after we make a decision. So in some items, we wanna get their comment first, and then.
That will be listed in the future.
I'm
No,
sure.
I was just asking.
It was really about the budget process,
Had
a public hearing and so forth.
When she was doing the template for this meeting, I said, not for this meeting, I said, but from then on, we will,
I missed the part where you took your discretion.
yeah, not a problem.
I got one thing further from the board.
Okay?
The only other one making out of it.
When the AFS-CME contract is ratified, can you get that distributed to us?
What contract, I'm
Are you
sorry?
talking about the apps?
Ask me, yeah.
Ask me.
Yeah, apps. Yes,
AFSME.
it is, it's already been done.
Okay.
So you need a copy or everybody
We'd like, yeah, we'd
wants?
like to have a copy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
I mean, the school board, they post theirs on the website.
yeah, I don't know what they do when it goes
So-
to the,
It's, but the town, I mean, I don't think I've ever actually seen the town
I don't think they
contract.
ever put any of them on.
Just want to understand what we're.
It should be.
I have, just because I'm nosy.
But it is public record with the
Yes,
town.
correct.
I just don't think they published it, but you all would like a copy of the
Yeah, I mean-
ASME contract.
It'd
Electronics
be
fine.
great. Yeah, you can send it electronically to me.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll talk to, I usually just go to the selectman's office, so I'll ask them to send it tomorrow.
Just out of curiosity, when that one is ratified, does it also get put in the town hall before it gets finally approved? Because I know the teacher's contract does, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
a teacher's contract is the only one that's required to do
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Even our custodial or others are not,
Those- okay.
don't go through.
So it's only the teachers that have to sit in
Yes,
town
it's
hall
a
for
statute.
those.
requirement.
Anything else from the board? Okay. Adjournment is in order.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.